Are you ready to connect with nature in a whole new way? Welcome to The Green Scene, your guide to a greener, healthier world. Join Green Corridors Andiswet Lamini, Duncan Pritchard and Charlene Versveld to explore the wonders of nature and find out how we can live more sustainably and take small actions at home and work to make a big impact.
Welcome back, everybody. As you know, Durban is South Africa's playground, where everybody comes down to Durban to play in the ocean, visits our hotels, visits our beautiful hidden gems. So now we're going to be concentrating on our coastline, looking at what makes it so beautiful, what makes it so important to us as Durban, and what affects our coastline. I mean, that's our conversation. Yep. You know, we're still connecting it to biodiversity. It exists in the ocean as well. So let's look at the oceans. Duncan, what do you see when you think of our coastlines? Not bikinis, the coastline.
Yeah, well, bikinis are tempting. But when you look out here, you see water, you see blue, okay? And that's pretty much all you see. If you could be underwater and see everything that's happening there. So just imagine you're sitting on the edge of the Crocodile River looking over at Kruger National Park, and there's a herd of breeding elephants walking past with their babies. There's a crocodile catching an impala. There's another whole herd of zebra over there. You'd be sitting and looking at this with like awe, like wow. That's happening right here, right now. Right now, there's whales that are migrating from Mozambique back down to Antarctica with their calves. I saw one breaching the other, driving up the M4 at 120 kilometers an hour, and the thing's breaching out the water.
I thought the whale was driving at 120. Like,
so, you know, we've got one of the oldest migrations known on this planet, like happening 2 kilometers away from us. Yeah. We just can't see it. We've got sharks, we've got rays, we've got all these tropical fish. There's so much happening there. You've got an entire wilderness area, probably the greatest wilderness area on the planet. If you took size and biodiversity, it'll make our game reserves look like sandpits. And it's there. It's right in front of us, but we just can't see it.
Yeah.
But it is right here, right now. We are on the edge of the greatest game reserve on the planet.
So, what do you see? Remember?
Well, listen, I must just tell you that Duncan is the person who introduced me to the word nudibranch. Okay.
What's nudibranch?
Well, that's a segue into a whole other conversation, but maybe we should park that. But Google nudibranch. It's nothing rude. It's a creature what lives in the sea. So anyway, so anything
it's
about
not a surfer guy.
No.
No,
Not at all. Okay, so for me, I live in the outer west in Durban, and so I don't spend a lot of time on the beach, also because I have got freckles and red hair, and so I'm not going to go tanning on the beach at all. But I walk there often over the weekends, and I walk on the beach. And what I see are people celebrating their faiths. So whether they are Zionists doing baptisms, you might see some Hindu people doing their prayers. There are different kinds of faiths. You just see ordinary people sitting on their own, praying, you know. You see people engaging with the ocean in a very spiritual kind
way.
Of way. And that's I'm talking about quite early in the morning. I mean, you know, when the sun comes up, the surfers come out, the jet skis come out or whatever. But you see the fishermen who a lot of them are fishing not only for sport but for food. And you see people engaging with the ocean on the shoreline. So for me, that's a very interesting thing about the connection we have with the ocean. So that's what I see. Duncan also, he mentioned once in a conversation around what do people do when they go to the ocean? You know, do you want to just elaborate? Because I love that description.
Well, I mean, you know, when people walk down to the sea, you watch them, they put their arms up in the air. It's like, and it doesn't matter where you come from, your background, your culture, around the world. We've got this connection to the ocean that everybody feels, and it doesn't matter whether you're from China, South America, Europe, you're African, European. It really, everybody has this. It's almost an awe, this understanding that this is just something quite amazing. We understand that at a deep sort of level.
I can really attest to that. Something interesting that you didn't know. I come from generations of sand bushmen, spiritualists.
Oh, okay.
And we are very, you know, us Sannies, we're very close to the ocean. And my mom has always said to me, respect the ocean, appreciate the ocean, because your ancestors are close to the ocean. Yeah. They're close to the mountains. They're close deep in the waters. And when I call on to my mother's ancestors, some of them are Batembu, I say those of the ocean, below the ocean, I call upon you to come up. So it's a spiritual thing, except I have to take a 1 rand each time, and then the wave comes on, and then it becomes a whole nother fiasco. But I'm trying to say, is, as Africans, we are connected. As
all feel it,
original Africans, as Sannies, we really, really connected to the ocean. And it brings me to this conversation here of, us in tourism. As you know, Green Corridors is working very closely with the municipality of eThekwini, working on the sustainability of our fresh waters that we should be having access to, also our tourism, which is very dependent on our coastline. And quite recently, due to the flooding systems, due to a whole lot of other reasons, we've had a huge problem with E. coli, which has affected our tourism on another level.
Yeah.
I think also, Duncan, just to explain to people outside there, what is E. coli and how does it occur?
Well, I want to hear this one.
Yeah, I mean, the E. coli is quite naturally occurring in the environment. It's the levels of E. coli that get... so when we had the floods, a lot of our infrastructure was damaged, our pipes. So in short terms, you end up with sewage entering the river systems, which makes its way down to the ocean. And that can make you very sick. I picked up E. coli in India a few years ago, and I lost about 10 kilograms. So you can get very sick from it. In our context in Durban, it's an engineering problem.
So we are a city of rivers, correct? So,
Yes,
so we're a city of rivers. The rivers just flowing into the Indian Ocean. The conversation about what happens upstream, I mean, I think that's an important conversation that we need to have is around, it's all very well us looking at what's happening on the beaches and then what's happening in the ocean, but what is happening upstream?
The analogy I like, and you look at plastic on the beach, and we go and pick up all the plastic, and we're all worried about what's happening on the beach. And the analogy is if your sink is overflowing in the kitchen, what do? Do you mop the floor or do you turn off the tap?
You turn off the tap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when we're worrying about the beach, that's mopping the floor.
Yeah.
Turning off the tap's going to happen upstream.
I also feel that we are literally mopping the floor and not turning off the tap. Charlene, I know you're an evangelist on this. You're an evangelist, and we're going to get people actually understanding that it's not about picking up the litter, it's about resolving why we're getting the litter by the ocean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So recently I went with Green Corridors with their Green Spaces team. Okay, so they look after green spaces, and it's quite complex, the work that they do on various levels. But one of the things they have been doing with the PEP, Public Employment Program. So we've had people working with us. So we went in on World Water Day, and we went to clean up an area in the Umhlanga catchment area. Now, bear in mind, this is a tributary which goes down into the Umhlanga River, which then lands up onto the Umhlanga beach.
For an average person, where is the Umhlanga River? Is it in Umhlanga Rocks? Is it in Inanda? Where is it?
It's the one that feeds into Umhlanga.
It's upstream from Umhlanga, so it's coming past.
So it's a catchment. It's a catchment area, and there were about 40 volunteers, PEP workers, and we realised that it was an insurmountable task trying to get the litter off this tributary, and just if the waters were going to come down, it was just going to keep going into the river. And so part of that conversation we need to have is like, what is government doing? What are the policies in place? What is service delivery doing? What are businesses? So businesses, and I'm using Umhlanga as because that's the experience that I've had. So what are the businesses, for example, in Umhlanga doing about what's going on upstream? Because it's, as Duncan says, let's turn off the tap. Let's turn off the tap. So it's about civil society, it's about businesses, it's about government working together, not working in silos. It's not a us and them situation. We are part of, as Duncan used in one of the podcasts, was the Jenga. So we all part of this whole biodiverse, Jenga kit, and if you pull one part out, it's the thing's going to collapse. So what we need to do is start working together with business, with government, with civil society, is to solve those problems. And I was speaking to one of the local people. Well, first of all, their sewage pipes were broken and it was going straight into the river. So there were people trying to fix that and all of that. So we were working with sewage flowing everywhere. Well, not quite on us, but further down. But it was horrendous. And when I spoke to some of the women that were working there who were asking what the Green Corridor team were doing, she said, we try so hard to keep our rubbish together. But there's a point where we can't because there might be a break in service or whatever it is. So we take it to a space which is not going to affect us. We take it to an open space. And those open spaces are more than likely near waterways and that kind of stuff. And then it just builds up and builds up and builds up to a point where it is an insurmountable problem for a community to resolve. And then the waters come down and it goes straight onto the beaches and into the ocean. So that, for me, is the thing that we need to look at, is how can we work together? And I really do. I challenge business, government, and civil societies to start working as teams. How can we tackle this thing together?
South Africans can be quite self-critical people.
And also quite funny at times.
It is, yeah. But this is not just a uniquely South African. This is a global problem of note, And I don't think there is actually there's not a model or a solution on how do we stop the plastic pollution issue.
Yeah.
That has not been solved yet. So it does need a lot of teamwork and communication and dealing with, community by community to try address these problems in a way that's relevant locally, because it's something that we literally do not have a simple solution to.
Yeah.
And you could say, okay, well, we don't have, waste in the suburbs isn't a thing. It is a thing. It's just going somewhere else. It's not going to the river, but it's going to a landfill site, and landfills have massive environmental impact. So it's just not visible. So that the trash that comes from the nice leafy suburbs, it's just moved somewhere else. It's not. We haven't taken away the problem.
It becomes someone else's problem. But then from then trickles another issue. Nappies. What happened? Because I've heard that, of all the litter pickups, a bulk of these pickups, you end up with nappies, sanitaries, and all of those end up where they end up in our sewage pump systems. And then from then, the sewage pump systems get damaged. So it's a connection of issues. Question is, how are we going to be finding solutions that at the end of the day will work for the benefits of our ocean, which I feel Durban reaps a lot from our oceans economically as well. This affects our tourism and
so the Green Corridors has a Nappy program, which is a kind of pilot program. Do you want to talk more about it, Duncan? It's a fascinating project, absorbent hygiene products, AHPs.
There's a range of things, and you've got some nice little stories around that. But at a broad level, this is still very much in a pilot phase. I think last year we've done a whole bunch of research in informal settlements funded by Kimberly Clark, who produced...
And ETH University
and
Zurich.
ETH Zurich, who were the research leads, to just understand what's happening to these products when they're not going again to a formal landfill. Good information was gained from that, and we started a rollout to try get these, nappies collected in a central place in certain communities, but it's still very much in its pilot phase. And it's, like I said, it's one of those problems that we're actually still trying to actually understand the problem before really fully being able to solve it.
I actually took a TV station to go and do some interviews with the people that are running it. And certainly the young community ladies that are running the program have said it's made a huge difference in terms of rats and kind of the health within their informal settlement. So that's really brilliant, and that's real change behaviour. And it's a very simple thing. It's about putting bins in the right place. It's about collecting stuff. So one of the things which really blew me away was these ladies were explaining that it's very important that they take the nappies and all the other AHPs and they lock them away. Then Durban Solid Waste comes and collects them from a locked container. And one of the issues is around bodily waste being used for bad medicine or moot. Well, can you just maybe elaborate? Because I thought that was quite interesting.
Arlene, I just said I came from a long line of them. I didn't say I was one of them. Relax, chick, relax. I still go and Google for some of these things.
I found it. But the young woman I was talking to, she said there's a very real fear of someone getting
it's real. It is real. I mean,
I
live in a township which is also along the Mgeni River, and we get told, and our parents get told, I mean, growing up as well, whatever is a bodily fluid is a personal thing, and make sure that it's in a space where when the DSW comes to take all the refusal, make sure it's in a separate packet, and then you put it in and include it with the rest of the rubbish bin. But it's not something that a neighbor can come and triple onto, because something bad will happen. It's either you'll stop having babies or things will grow on you. It's a myth. Some say it's a myth, some say it's true. Yeah. But myth or true or not true, you don't want to test it.
No,
you want to keep you being you.
Yeah. I mean, I think what this for me just shows, I mean, and it's in a way it's beautiful having this conversation because sometimes, I mean, like for example, if I put shoes on the table, my mother, she goes, "Oh, your grandfather's going to roll in his grave."
Why are you putting shoes on the table?
Exactly. Why? Well, you rush home, you put a pair of I don't know why I don't know, but
it's your own habits in the whole of Durban. Durban.
So no, it's not. But what I'm saying is that you have these things that really is. My mother gets terrified when I put she's terrified. I'm talking culturally, she is terrified that something bad is going to happen. So there's a lot of stuff that in our connection with nature and all that kind of. We have these ideas of things that are going to happen, and whether they're true or not is irrelevant. It's how we behave with that information. So I just thought that was the nappy thing was for me is really, I've had a complete new look at that and empathy, for people that are going through that.
Okay, guys, I mean, we've spoken about the oceans. We've spoken about Durban's rivers. We've spoken about our plastic pollution. And the E. coli as well in Durban, that's all affecting our riverlines. But what is the blue flag status?
Well, I think what's happened is that Durban lost its blue flag status, which is basically the levels of the health of the ocean and the shoreline. People would look at what beaches they want to go to because they are blue flag beaches. These are good. These are things that tourists are going to look for. So we lost that status, and word is out.
So we lost it due to the level
because of the level of E. coli. But remember we had the huge floods. Our infrastructure's been damaged. We're not back, as far as I understand, we're not back to a point where our infrastructure is fixed. So I believe that there are moves by the city to try and reclaim that, and how they're going to do that. Obviously got sort of plans in place. It'll be interesting to get an idea of what that's going to be. But the city economy relies on tourism hugely, and those beaches are phenomenal. I mean, you see when people come to the beaches and they clean and they don't have rubbish on it. They are that whole promenade, even Mhlanga and then Belito. Those beaches, the beaches and the promenades are world class. I mean, they're beyond world class. All these things are positives for the city and how we work together. And it's not a case of us and them. We got to connect. It's civil society, it's government, it's businesses, it's everyone working together to create this. We can't just keep relying and pushing it out and saying it's this person's problem. We have to work. We have to connect.
Yeah. What are the solutions, Duncan, to all of this? How could we play our part as Durbanites?
Like I say, these are complicated global problems, but I think there are things you can do. So one of the things that Green Corridors is looking at is technology that can turn waste plastics, like the sort of stuff you normally don't recycle, into valuable products, like pavers, and there's all sorts of things you can do with that. They've got these litter booms that catch the plastic. People collect that plastic, take it to a center where it gets turned into something else. So plastics is actually quite valuable. So recycling and separating your plastics is a big purpose, because somebody can do something with that plastic, and it's valuable. And there's a lot of people in our city who you probably don't even see, who run a whole economy around waste plastics and at a micro level. The other thing is your organic waste, your food waste, your potato peels, any food waste or waste that's of a organic nature that comes out of your home that ends up on landfill has a massive impact on climate change. I won't go into the science of it, but having a little hole at home or a bucket where you make compost out of that. So all you need to do is chuck all your food waste into a little hole, cover it with some sand so it won't stink. There's also there's a whole bunch of ways you can do it. But the difference that makes in terms of impact on the environment from a climate change perspective is phenomenal. And you're putting carbon back into the soil. You're making your own soil nice and healthy at home. You can use that compost for your garden. If you don't use it for your garden, you're just going to have a greener lawn one day. So it's really valuable. That organic waste, your food waste and things, composting that is a really useful thing to be doing at home.
On final thoughts, I mean, now how could we work together as businesses, individuals from everywhere in Durban, working together to bring the city back to the blue flag? How do we come together and make that difference to improve our ocean lines?
We've got to deal with these upstream problems, to solve that sort of problem. And that does take a lot of cooperation across a bunch of different people. But I think also innovation. I so firmly believe that so many of these problems can be solved just with, there's clever ideas and there's clever ways of just doing things differently that can solve this. And so we need that innovative thinking. We need that collaboration. This is not something that one organization or the municipality or one business can solve on its own. This is arguably, if you took the three biggest problems on the planet at the moment, marine plastic pollution is up there. It is one of the biggest global problems. So we need to understand it in that sort of context and the whole world is grappling to solve this problem.
And I think my final thought is I had a walk yesterday, and I was walking, and there was a can in the middle of a suburb lying on the road. And I went, I don't want to walk another 3 kilometers with a can in my hand. But I picked it up. It's not that I'm a saint at all. And it got me thinking about, it's just one can. It's just one can. So when we're in an environment, it's just like one person, excuse the pun, but one person can make a difference. One can being picked up can make a difference, and it's how we take ownership of that. We need to be responsible as much as government. It's all very well saying it's government's problem, government must sort it out, but we're part of that, So I think the individual needs to take ownership of the one can.
Yeah, I think also what I really don't want people to misunderstand, to also close this off, is that we are not saying that corporate should not do litter pickups at the beachfront. They should, but rather turn off the tap than mop the floor. I think that's a nice way to end this one. Let's turn off the tap and not mop the floor. On that note as well, I mean, if you're a corporate and wanting to play your role, within your organization or your structure, saying, what could we do to also improve Durban's ecosystems and help the city achieve the blue flag rate? Please contact us at Green Corridor on our website. We'll have all our details. Thank you so much for listening. It's a goodbye from me, Charlene.
And a goodbye from me.
Thanks, Susan. Talk to you guys next time.
Cheers.
The Green Scene podcast is a partnership between East Coast Radio and Green Corridors. Find out more about Green Corridors via durbangreencorridor.co.za.